What happens when Hollywood's most beloved and humble star finally reaches his breaking point on live television? What we witnessed on The View was nothing short of explosive. And it all started when Joy Behar decided to cross a line that should never have been crossed. This confrontation has everyone talking. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Keanu Reeves, the man who never loses his cool, absolutely lost it on national TV. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because this story is about to get intense. The day started like any other episode of The View. The familiar theme music played. The audience applauded and the co-hosts took their seats around that iconic table. Joy Behar, as usual, was ready with her sharp tongue and controversial takes. But what she didn't expect was that her guest, Keanu Reeves, would be the one person who wouldn't just sit there and take it. Keanu walked onto the set with his trademark calm demeanor, wearing a simple black suit and that gentle smile that has charmed millions worldwide. The audience erupted in applause as he made his way to the guest chair, waving modestly and taking his seat with the grace of someone who's done 1,000 interviews before. "Welcome to The View, Keanu," Whoopi Goldberg said warmly as the applause died down. "It's great to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Keanu replied, his voice soft and genuine. "It's a pleasure to be here with all of you." The interview began smoothly enough. They talked about his latest film project, his motorcycle passion, and his well-known acts of kindness that have become internet legends. Keanu answered each question with thoughtfulness and humility, never trying to steal the spotlight or promote himself too aggressively. But Joy Behar had been unusually quiet during these opening minutes. And anyone who knew her knew that silence from Joy meant she was loading up for something big. She sat there with that familiar smirk, tapping her pen against her notes, waiting for her moment to pounce. "You know, Keanu," Joy suddenly interjected, cutting off a story he was telling about working with young actors, "I have to ask you something that's been bothering me." The energy in the room shifted instantly. The other co-hosts exchanged glances and Keanu turned his full attention to Joy, his expression still pleasant but now more focused. Of course, he said simply, "What would you like to know?" Joy leaned forward, that predatory smile spreading across her face. "Well, you've built this whole image around being this nice guy, this humble actor who gives away millions and helps strangers on the street, but I have to wonder, is any of it real? Or is it all just the most elaborate public relations campaign in Hollywood history?" The studio fell silent. Even the audience seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't the kind of question guests usually faced on The View, especially not someone as universally beloved as Keanu Reeves. Keanu's expression didn't change dramatically, but those who knew how to read him could see the slight tightening around his eyes, the barely perceptible shift in his posture. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Could you clarify what you mean by that?" Joy wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed energized by the tension she'd created. "Oh, come on, Keanu. You're telling me that a Hollywood actor, someone who's made hundreds of millions of dollars, is genuinely this selfless person, that there's no calculation behind all these good deeds, that your whole modest, humble thing isn't just another performance?" The other host looked uncomfortable now. Whoopi cleared her throat, clearly wanting to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Joy was just getting started. Joy continued, her voice getting sharper. "Normal. People don't have photographers following them around when they do good deeds. Normal people don't have their acts of kindness become viral marketing campaigns for their movies. So, forgive me if I'm a little skeptical of St. Keanu." Keanu sat still for a moment, processing what he just heard. When he finally spoke, his voice was still controlled, but there was something different about it now, something harder. "Joy, I understand that skepticism is part of your job, but I think you're crossing into territory that's not just unfair. It's cruel." "Cruel?" Joy laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, please. I'm asking legitimate questions that journalists should be asking. You want cruel? Cruel is manipulating people's emotions for profit. Cruel is building a fake persona to sell movie tickets." That's when something shifted in Keanu's eyes. The man who had remained calm through decades of personal tragedy, who had faced unimaginable loss with grace and dignity, was finally reaching his limit. You want to talk about manipulation, Joy? Keanu's voice was still quiet, but now it carried a weight that made everyone in the studio lean forward. Let's talk about manipulation. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Keanu Reeves, the man who had spent his entire career avoiding confrontation, was now staring directly at Joy Behar with an intensity that made the entire studio hold its breath. You sit at this table every day, Keanu continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. And you tear people down for entertainment? You take someone's genuine attempt to do good in the world and you twist it into something cynical and calculated because that's what gets ratings, isn't it, Joy? Joy's smirk faltered slightly, but she wasn't backing down. I'm a journalist, Keanu. I ask hard questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews? Hard questions? Keanu leaned forward now, his calm exterior finally cracking. You want to ask hard questions? Then ask me about the work. Ask me about the craft. Ask me about the stories we're trying to tell. But don't you dare sit there and question whether my grief is real, whether my desire to help people is genuine, whether the loss of my best friend, my daughter, my sister somehow made me into a better person or just a better actor. The mention of his personal losses sent a visible shock through the panel. Even Joy seemed momentarily taken aback, but she recovered quickly, her defensive instincts kicking in. Now you're being dramatic, Joy shot back. I never mentioned your personal tragedies. I'm talking about your public image, your brand. There's a difference. No, Joy, there isn't. Keanu's voice was rising now, something none of them had ever heard before. You can't separate the two when you're attacking someone's character. When you call someone's kindness fake, when you suggest their generosity is calculated, you're attacking everything they are. You're telling the world that goodness doesn't exist, that every decent act must have an ulterior motive. Son, any host? Tried to jump in. Maybe we should. No, Keanu said firmly, his eyes never leaving Joy's face. Let her finish. She clearly has more to say about my supposed manipulation. Please, Joy, enlighten us all about how helping a stranded motorist change a tire is a publicity stunt. Tell us how giving my Matrix salary to the crew was just good business. Explain to everyone how privately paying for cancer treatments for friends is somehow calculated marketing. Joy's face was wringing now, her voice getting shriller. You see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You've got a list ready. You know exactly which good deeds to mention when someone challenges you. That's not genuine kindness. That's crisis management, the audience began to murmur. Some clearly uncomfortable with Joy's continued attacks, but Keanu wasn't done. You want to know what crisis management looks like, Joy? Keanu stood up from his chair, something that caught everyone off guard. Crisis management is when someone like you gets called out for being unnecessarily cruel in national television. And instead of apologizing, instead of showing an ounce of human decency, you double down and attack harder. That's crisis management? I am not being cruel, Joy insisted. But her voice lacked the confidence it had earlier. I'm being realistic. I'm being honest. Honest. Keanu's laugh was sharp and bitter. A sound none of them had ever heard from him before. You want honest? Here's honest. You're not a journalist, Joy. Journalists seek truth. You seek controversy. You don't care about facts. You care about reactions. You don't want to inform people. You want to upset them because upset people keep watching and watching people make you money? Whoopi tried again to intervene. Keanu, maybe we can. No, Whoopi, with all due respect, I'm not finished. Keanu turned back to Joy, who was now shifting uncomfortably in her seat. You want to question my motives? Fine, let's question yours. How much of your salary comes from creating drama? How much of your career is built on tearing down people who can't fight back? And when someone finally does fight back, when someone finally calls you out for what you really are, you hide behind the label of journalists like it gives you permission to be heartless. Joy's face was now completely red and she was gripping her pen so tightly her knuckles were white. How dare you lecture me about journalism? You're an actor. You pretend to be other people for a living. And you pretend to be a decent human. Being for a living, Keanu shot back without hesitation. At least I'm honest about what I do being pretend. The studio was dead silent now. The cameras were still rolling, but everyone seemed frozen by the intensity of what they were witnessing. This wasn't the Keanu Reeves the world knew. This was someone who had finally been pushed too far. Joy tried to regain control of the situation. You know what, Keanu? You're proving my point perfectly. The mask is coming off now, isn't it? The real you is coming out, and it's not nearly as nice as you pretend to be. That's when Keanu's voice dropped to "I'll